In this video, we're gonna create this fog card material, so let's do it. You can download the project file of this video on my Patreon. Also, if you're not familiar with any of the notes I use in this video, check out the material notes playlist on my channel. I'll put the links in the description below. Right click in the material graph and create a new material. Let's name it m_fogcard_1. Save it and open it. In the details tab, we should turn on two-sided and set the blend mode to translucent. So let's start with the color. Hold 3 on the keyboard and click to add a constant 3 vector. Right click and convert it to a parameter. Let's name it color and set the default value to white and connect it to the base color. Hold M and click to add a multiply node. Connect the color to A input and right click on the B input and promote it to a parameter. Connect the multiply node to the emissive color input and let's name the parameter emissive multiplier. The default value of 0 is okay to start. Save the material. Press Ctrl D to duplicate this parameter and name it opacity. Set the default value to 0.8 and connect it to the opacity input here. Save the material and now let's check the material in the level. Add a plane from here. Place it where you want and rotate and scale it so it covers the area you want to. Let's assign the material to the plane. And it doesn't look good at all. We only have some basic functionalities. We can change the color, control the emissive multiplier, and change the opacity. But that's not enough. Let's build on top of that. We're gonna use two nodes, depth fade and camera depth fade. Let's first add the depth fade node. Connect it to the opacity input and connect the opacity parameter to its opacity input here. Let's move it here. Press Ctrl D to duplicate the parameter and name it fade distance. Set the default value to 200 and connect it like this. Save the material and let's check it in the level. Now we can see that something has changed. The plane is fading away where it intersects with the meshes around it, and if I increase the fade distance value to something high like 1500, we can see that now the fog has depth. That's what the depth fade node does. If we tweak the opacity value, we can enhance the way it looks. Right now, if I move towards the fog plane, it suddenly disappears. Let's work on that. We can fix it by using the camera depth fade node, so let's add it. Hold M and click to add the multiply node. We should multiply the camera depth fade by the opacity parameter before connecting it to the opacity input here. So let's do that. And let's set the fade length to 200. So hold 1 and click to add a constant, set it to 200 and connect it. Save the material. Now when we move through the fog mesh, it smoothly fades away. Now let's fix these hard edges around the plane. Let's get back in the material, add a radial gradient. We should multiply it by the opacity parameter, so hold M and click to add a multiply node, connect them like this, and connect this multiply node to the A input here. Save the material. And the borders are now invisible. It looks better. Now the base of the material is ready and we can even use it like this in our environments. Next, we're gonna add noise to it, but before getting to that, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also join our communities on Telegram, Discord and Facebook. You can ask questions or answer them, share your work in progress and more. If you're interested in supporting the channel and downloading the project file of this video, check out my Patreon, the links are in the description. I'm gonna use a noise texture from the engine content. On the top right of the content browser, click on settings and make sure engine content and plugin content are enabled. Up here click on all and open the engine folder. Search for noise and from here set the filter to texture. Let's enable it. I want to use this styling noise texture. So let's add it to the material and put it here. Right click on it and convert it to a parameter. Let's name it noise texture. I'm gonna use my UV manipulation function to control the size of the texture. Connect it to the UV's input on the texture, right click on the size input and promote it to a parameter. Let's name it size noise and set the default value to something like 4. Now we should multiply the texture by the opacity parameter here. So let's hold M and click to add a multiply node. Connect the texture to the B input. I'll drag out of the G channel, but you can use any of the channels you want. Connect the parameter to the A input and connect the multiply node to the multiply node here. Save the material. And now we can kinda see the noise pattern on the plane. You can see it better if I increase the opacity parameter. And we can control its size with the size parameter. Let's add movement to the fog. Here between the texture and the UV manipulation function, let's add a panner node. We can do that by holding P and clicking to add it. So let's connect it like this. And now we should add the speed controls. Hold S and click to add two parameters. I'll name this one speed U and this one speed V. We should append them to make a constant 2 vector. So right click and search for append and add the append vector node. Connect the first one to the A input and the second one to the B input. And let's connect it to the speed input. Save the material. We can now tweak these parameters and add movement to the fog. Right now the speed values are too low, but the speed of the fog is too fast. We can add a divide node before the speed input. Connect it like this and set the B value to something high like 500. Save the material. And now the speed parameter values are more sensible. Let's add some more nodes to have more control over the look of the noise. We should add them here after the texture. So let's move them here. Add a multiply node and a power node. Connect the texture to the multiply, then to the power, and then connect the power to the multiply node here. Hold S and click to add two parameters. This one will be brightness and this one will be contrast. Set their default value to 1 and connect the brightness to the multiply node and connect the contrast to the power node. Save the material. And now we can tweak these parameters to better control the noise. To add more detail to the fog, we can add 2 layers of noise. So select all these nodes, press Ctrl D to duplicate them, Now we should change the name of these parameters to noise1. And the name of these parameters to noise2. I want noise2 to be smaller, so let's set the default size to something like 0.5. Let's add a named reroute for each of them. This one will be noise1. This one will be noise2. Hold Alt and click to disconnect this node. Add the named reroute for both noise1 and noise2. We should add them before connecting them to the multiply node. So let's hold A and click to add the add node. Connect them like this and connect the add to the multiply node. And let's move these nodes over here. Save the material. And I think now it looks better. It has more detail. Now I want to add a parameter to control the amount of each fog layer. So let's move the named reroute over here. Hold L and click to add a lerp node. Connect the power to the B input and connect the lerp to the named reroute. Hold S and click to add a parameter. I'll name it amount noise1. Set the default value to 1. Run it through a saturate and connect it to the alpha input. Now let's do the same for noise2. Now we can control the amount of both layers of fog individually. What if we want a simple misty fog without the noise? Let's add a parameter to control that. Here, after adding noise1 and noise2, let's add a lerp node. Connect the add to the B input and connect the lerp to the B input of the multiply node. Hold S and click to add two parameters. This one I'll name mist opacity. Set the default value to 1 and connect it to the A input of the lerp. Now just to be clear, mist and fog are the same thing. The difference is that fog is thicker. Here I'll use the name mist to clarify that it controls the fog without the noise. This one I'll name noise overall amount. Set the default value to 0.5. Run it through a saturate and connect it to the alpha input here. This parameter controls the overall amount of the noise. When it's 0, we only see the mist and there's no noise. And when it's 1, we only see the noise and there's no mist. Save the material. And now we can see a combination of the mist and the noise because it is set to 0.5. And if I set it to 0, we only see the mist. And if I set it to 1, we only see the noise. Select all these nodes, press C to add a comment and name it noise. Here enable show bubble when zoomed to better see the name and save the material again. Let's first create the mask in a separate material to better understand how it works. Right click in the content browser and create a material. I'll name it height mask. Open it, add a world position node and right click and search for object bound and add the object local bounds. Now we should subtract the XYZ output from the minimum of the local bounds and then divide it by the extents of the bounds. Because I want the mask to work in world space, we should transform these two values from local space to world space. So let's add a transform node set the source to local space and the destination to world space. Duplicate it, and we should run both of these values through the transform node before connecting them to the subtract and the divide node. So let's do that. Add a component mask and mask the B channel, and let's multiply it by a parameter to control its sharpness. Set the default value to 1 and then subtract it from another one to control its offset. For this one, the default value should be 0. Connect it to the base color and let's save the material. Assign it to this cube to better understand how it works. Let's hide the floor mesh for now. Now by default, the mask turns from black to white at 0 in world space. We can move it with the offset parameter and change the sharpness with the sharpness parameter. Now select all of these nodes, press Ctrl C to copy them, and in the material press Ctrl V to paste them. I'll change the name of these parameters to height mask sharpness, and height mask offset. And we should add a couple of nodes to make it work. First, let's add a saturate node to clamp the values between 0 and 1. Next, we should invert the values, because right now the white part is on the top and the black part is on the bottom, and we want it in reverse. So in the material, let's add a 1 minus node. Here's before and after using the 1 minus node. And finally, let's add a named reroute and name it height mask. Now up here, before multiplying it by the radial gradient, let's add a multiply node by holding M and clicking. Connect this multiply to the B input and this one to the B input here. Right click and under named reroutes, let's add a height mask and connect it to the A input here. Save the material. Let's close this one, and now we can control the height of the fog with these two parameters. As always, I want to add a parameter to control the amount of the height mask. So here let's move the named reroute to make some room. Hold L and click to add a lerp node. Connect the 1 minus to the B input and connect the lerp to the height mask named reroute. And we should set the A value to 1. Hold S and click to add a parameter. Let's name it amount height fog. Height mask. Set the default value to 0, run it through a saturate, and connect it to the alpha input like this. Save the material. Now by default the amount of the height mask is 0, so if I increase it, we can see its effect. When it's 0, there is no height mask, and when it's 1, we see the height mask. Now select all of these nodes, press C to add a comment, and let's name it height mask. And here in the details, let's enable show bubble when zoomed. Let's create a material instance and go over how to organize it. Right click on the material and create a material instance. And let's open it. Right now the parameters are all over the place. It doesn't look good, so let's organize them. We can create 4 groups for the parameters. These are the global fog parameters, these are the noise 1 parameters, these are the noise 2 parameters, and these are the height mask parameters. So let's select all these parameters and set the group to 0, 0 global. Select these parameters and set the group to noise 1. Don't forget about the texture. Set these to noise 2. and these parameters to height mask. Save the material. And now the parameters are organized and easier to use. Now by default, the parameters in each group are ordered alphabetically. We can go further and change their order too. For example, let's say I want the order of these parameters to be amount, noise texture, size, brightness, contrast, speed U, and then speed V. So let's go in the material and select one of the parameters. To control the order of the parameters in their respective groups, we should change the sort priority. By default, all of them are set to 32, so the parameters will be sorted alphabetically. The lower the sort priority, the higher in the list that parameter will be. I want the amount parameter to be the first one, so let's set its priority to 0. The textures I'll set to 10. The size to 20, brightness to 30, contrast to 40, speed U to 50, and speed V to 60. I could set these values to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, or any other numbers. The thing is that the lower numbers are always on the top of the list. So save the material. And now the parameters are ordered the way we wanted them to be. We can organize all the parameter groups the same way. Right now we have 3 layers of fog, the mist, noise 1 and noise 2, but we control all of them with the same depth fade node. We can add a depth fade for each of them individually. So let's close this material and first duplicate the material. Open it, delete this one, and connect the multiply node to the opacity input here. Let's start with noise 1. Make some room here, move the name reroute and the lerp to make some room. Add a depth fade node, put it here and connect the power to the opacity input and the depth fade to the B input here. Duplicate one of the parameters and let's name it fade distance. Set the sort priority to 45 so that it is after the contrast parameter, and set the default value to something like 1000. Connect it like this, and let's do the same for noise 2. Duplicate the nodes, connect it like this, change the name to noise 2 and set the group to noise 2. And let's add a depth fade for the mist too. So let's add a depth fade here, connect the mist opacity to the opacity input, connect it to the A input here, and duplicate the parameter and name it fade distance mist. Set the default value to 1000, connect it, and for these two let's create a new group and name it mist. I'll set the sort priority of this one to 0 and the sort priority of the fade distance to 1. Let's also rename it to opacity mist. Save the material and let's create a material instance from the new material. Open it, and now the material is ready. These are the global parameters, these are the height mask parameters, and these are our 3 layers of fog, the mist, noise 1 and noise 2. Also here, instead of lerping between the mist and the fog noise, we can add them together. So let's hold A and click to add the add node, delete the lerp and these 2 nodes, add them together, and let's connect it to the multiply node. And save the material. Here's how it looks in some of my environments. And if you're interested in volumetric fogs, here's one I have created and put on my Patreon. I'll put the link to its video in the description. And that's it. Click here for more Unreal stuff, and thank you so much for watching. Also a special thanks to my patrons for making this possible. Like this video, subscribe, and join our communities. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. So, see you in the next one.